I took a job that was on paper my dream job, but at the end of the day, it just was not what I wanted.
So why did you leave Nordstrom?
The honest truth why I left Nordstrom, sexual harassment.
Were you scared as you were making this decision?
I sold literally everything. I sold it all. I moved to Italy and never looked back. 90% of small businesses fail within the first 3 years. I mean, I made it through. I think you have to stop researching at some point and you have to start planning. Know what that goal is, and then you've got to work backwards and design that plan to get there.
If you had to choose between happiness and success, which would you choose?
I was definitely not happy trying to be successful. If I can be happy, well, then the rest of it will come.
Hello, Wayfinders, and welcome back to 101 Ways Out. I'm Vanessa Jupi, your host. And today, I'm really excited to introduce you to Jennifer Sontag. She is a serial entrepreneur. She has opened several businesses, and she's gone in and out of the corporate experience. She has a unique spin on all of this. And in our video, we're recording while she's in Portugal, but now she lives full-time in Italy. And she can help you do the same. She helps people move from the United States to Italy. I think you're going to love our conversation. You're going to get a lot out of it. And she has quite a journey. So thank you for being here. And I'll see you at the very end for something quite special. Jennifer has actually recorded an update for us to tell us what's going on in her world. See you then. Well, hello. And thank you guys for being here with us today. I'm really excited about this conversation because I'm really excited to learn about our guest and how she has navigated moving to Europe from the United States. I'm here today with Jennifer Sontag, the founder of ViaMonde.eu, a European relocation and citizenship concierge based in Sicily with teams in the US and Europe. After navigating her own Italian citizenship by descent and moving across Spain and Italy, she built ViaMonde.eu to guide others through visas, dual citizenship, and full-service relocation. Sounds like a lot of work, so we'll get into that. Her work and story have been featured in the Washington Post, and she regularly shares practical insights on EU access and life integration. And I found Jennifer on Reddit Expat, trying to kind of find people that have gone and navigated this already. So I'm going to speak to a pro here, and we're all going to learn a lot. So Jennifer, why don't we start with telling us a little bit about where you are on your life journey at this moment in time?
Thank you, Vanessa, for having me.
Yeah.
I actually found out in 2015, so a little over 10 years ago, that I potentially could qualify for Italian citizenship. And at the time, I was living a life. I had just gone through a career change and was finishing a graduate degree living in Ohio. But I was really kind of unsatisfied with my life. Marriage that was about ready to explode and just kind of held together by bubblegum and shoestrings, and looking for what was that next step, right? So Italy seemed like this was the opportunity. It just sort of fell into my lap. And it honestly was the most zigzaggy way possible that I could have gotten to Italy. I actually first moved to Shanghai, China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I saw that on your LinkedIn that you taught there. You taught in Shanghai, right?
Yes. So
Amazing.
I moved to Shanghai in 2015. I was like, okay, this is it. I need to start making plans to get out and figure out what I'm going to do. But it took a little bit of time. So first things first, my children were graduating from university. They were finishing university, graduating. I was finishing that career change. And I thought, I had spent so much time going back, getting all of these degrees. I really wanted to give it that try into this career change. So I took a job that was on paper my dream job, working for a nonprofit, serving an underserved population, really a beautiful organization with a beautiful mission. But at the end of the day, it just was not what I wanted. And so it took me till about, I want to say it was at a mid 2017, mid 2018, when I finally decided that's it. I'm going to pull the Band-Aid off. I'm going. And so in about 6 weeks, I pulled together, moved to Shanghai. This could be my bridge. It's the fastest place I could go because I was still so confused about how the heck I was going to get that Italian citizenship. Because at that point, there were not a lot of resources. It was very confusing. There were a lot of documents. My family didn't know a lot about my great-grandparents. And so I was still really confused. And at that point, I just wanted out. I just wanted to go. Political situation being what it was, coming out of the divorce, kids growing up and launching. There were just a lot of factors that it was time to do something different. So I went to Shanghai originally for a 10-month stint. I was going to teach English for a whole 14,000 USD per year, including housing. And I thought, I don't care. This is just going to be my gap year. At least I'll have something to do during the day. Right. And I ended up getting there. And it turns out that having been an entrepreneur was very valuable because in China, business is key. Capitalism is the king. And so being a qualified entrepreneur that had over 20 years of experience in entrepreneurship and corporate work, plus I had graduate degrees from top universities, I was hired as a business and economics teacher. And so I went from that 14,000 to an actual living wage so I could actually afford a nice place. And I stayed 3 years and then COVID hit. And that's when I finally made the journey over to Europe. And by that point, I had met someone who I will spend the rest of my life with, who's absolutely wonderful. An
Oh,
American met a Spaniard in China, and we moved first to Spain. And then 3 months later, once I got into Spain, I moved to Italy and never looked back.
oh gosh, that's amazing. That's such an amazing journey. And it's so interesting to me to hear you say that teaching in China was the initial path because it seemed to be the most simple path, straightforward path, easiest path. And that it's like so interesting to think I'm leaving in America, I'm going to China, but my ultimate goal is Italy. Like that's really cool that you found that unique experience, unique path.
Yeah, I think most of my life has been 10 steps forward, one step to the side. I would not say that I've ever gone backwards, but sometimes I have to step to the side and let things pass and then get back on my journey.
Mm.
And so China was a part of the journey. When I went to China, I was in a place where I really needed to rebuild who I was and I needed to rediscover me. And because I had been out of business for several years, and that was my passion, I think that was the one thing I tried to do, sort of that corporate thing. I tried to fit into the nonprofit world and have bosses and have a structure and a board of directors. Oof, it is not for me. I tried it. And so getting back to China and being able to teach business, to be able to teach entrepreneurship and future business leaders who, I mean, these guys are incredible. These kids that I was teaching, I was writing recommendation letters from London School of Economics for Harvard. I mean, these children were so brilliant. And so that just re-sparked that inside of me that this is where I was meant to be. I'm meant to be an entrepreneur. This is just who I am.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Well, let's go back in your past and talk a little bit about your upbringing and your foundation, and then we'll get into the whole journey of your career and how you started to make some of the trade-off decisions that got you where you are now, running your business and living abroad. Can you share with us a little bit about what your upbringing was like, what your parents did for a living, and that sort of thing?
My parents were absolutely incredible, very self made. My father worked for the same corporation from the time he was 18 until he retired first at 57, went back to work for the same company as an independent, as a contractor. My brother actually took his corporate job and my dad stayed another 10 years with the company. I think in the end, he was there almost 50 years working a corporate job.
Wow.
So he was a company man. All of our baseball caps, our hoodies, everything, they were labeled in the company spirit. And my mom she was a stay-at-home mom, but she wasn't a stay-at-home mom. She always had outside interests. So my mom was a high school dropout. She got married at 16. But
Oh,
when I was growing up, she went back to college and she put herself first through community college, then got scholarships to a university. And she also then started a number of businesses that were incredibly successful. She learned to draw blueprints and she was the lead architect on, I can't even count, I think almost 20 homes that we lived in growing up. The neighbors used to think, we were kind of a little bit gypsy because we were always moving around. But my mom, when she had an idea, she would design the blueprints and then she would general contract the house. So she always had something going on. That's definitely where I got that spirit of when she wanted something, she made it happen. And so that's how they built their financial future. that's how they raised us. Is we were very hardworking. We always, were taught to respect and toe the line. My father was in sales. He was in corporate sales. And so we were always customer based. We always grew up around my dad's clients. And we always were a part of his business as well as my mom's. I used to go in and file for him when my mom decided she wanted to go into real estate because my dad decided that's it, no more moves, go sell somebody else's house, go move somebody else. She became a real estate broker and I used to go in and do her files and answer the phones and things like that. And so that just spurred that interest in doing my own thing. And I love my dad and I so respect what he did, but oh, I don't think I could do the same thing every day for almost 50 years of my life.
That's amazing. Your parents sound really incredible. And I think growing up as a young lady, watching your mom put herself through college and then start her own business and have a successful career after that would have been such an inspiring experience. It kind of shows you that you're not limited.
Yeah, and I think that was the interesting thing, right? Because I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I'm a little bit older. And so that wasn't the normal trajectory for a lot of the parents. A lot of the moms, I went to small Catholic schools and a lot of the moms were teachers. They were room moms. If they had a job, maybe they were working as a bookkeeper or an assistant, but my mom had her own businesses. And when she decided, I'm going to have a wallpaper business because I want a wallpaper and I love doing this, and I've run out of walls, so I'm going to start doing it for other people, you know, this is where my businesses grew from too. When I went through my citizenship process, I was one and done, but I had so much fun doing it and learned so much about it that I just started helping people that I had met online. I was working another job while doing it, and it just grew from there.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, I love that. That is amazing. Were there any experiences as you were growing up that you feel like that you had in your life that you feel like really shaped who you became?
Yeah, I think the biggest things that shaped who I became is I was a teen mom. I had a child at 18 as I was graduating from high school. And at that point I had a big decision to make. I suddenly had a child and going to university as was planned was not going to be as easy as it would have been had I not gotten pregnant. And so I had a choice to make. I could go work for someone. My parents suggested, you should go to nursing school. This is a nice, solid job. And I did. I tried it. I tried doing that. Oh, you can go work for the company that my dad works for, like my brother did. And I could be an assistant in the office doing something. That just wasn't for me. And so I started working for a little baby boutique that was down the street from my house that I could bring my son with me. And because I was 18 years old and I had this baby and I could work in there. And I loved the interaction with the clients. I had such a passion for working with the clients. And I got that from my father. But then for my mom, I saw the things that the boutique owner was doing and thinking back and looking and talking to my mom about how she ran her businesses versus how this other woman was running her business. It became very clear that this is what I needed to be doing. So at 19, my parents helped me start a boutique. They put the money at the bank and as collateral. And I went to the SBA and I went to the bank. I had to get a score mentor and I wrote a business plan and how to go through underwriting. And the bank gave me a loan and that started my business. And I was in business for about 8 years until I sold it to a major department store in the US. And then I went to work for them. So at 28, I had my first corporate job.
Oh my gosh, that's really incredible. What kind of boutique or business did you have?
It was maternity and children's clothing. So
Love
again,
it.
right, I loved that time, but being 18 years old in the early 90s, the maternity clothes were so terrible. It was big bows and peplums and just terrible, terrible looking clothing. And of course, I'm 19 and I know everything. So uh, I had a very different flair for style and what someone should look like when they're pregnant. Just because we were pregnant did not mean that suddenly we lost our mind and needed to look like We were dressed up like a baby doll. My clients were still professionals. I was dressing professional newscasters, journalists. I was dressing the wives of different professional sports teams, politicians. They did not need to look like, an American Girl doll. They
Yeah.
they
My
needed to
gosh.
look like a professional. And so that's
Yeah.
that's what I did. And it was so successful that when I was 28, a major department store, the former May department stores, which was bought by Macy's, approached me and bought out my business. And then I went to work for them as a buyer in their corporate offices.
Wow. Where in the US were you located?
You know that moment when you realize that you can't keep living the way that you've been living? You've probably heard several of my guests talk about that already. If that resonates with you and you're feeling like you're in that moment, you're in luck. I've created a 30-day program that's going to help you become unstuck, reconnect with your joy, reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with your values. We're going to work together to figure out your next step, your vision, and your path forward. This is an invitation for you to live the life of your dreams that truly lights you up. Visit 101waysout.com to get started.
I was in St. Louis, so right in the center.
St. Louis.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that is so neat. I love that you said that you were 19 and knew it all. I don't think that's wrong. I honestly don't think that's wrong. I remember being a teenager and I remember the confidence that came with being a teenager because you hadn't gotten beaten up by the world yet.
Exactly.
You're like, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And you clearly were right.
Yeah. Yes.
You clearly were onto something.
Yeah. I think I just had enough gumption in me that, yeah, of course I can do it. Sure. Why not? I hadn't been through university. I hadn't had those tough conversations. At that point, I was still getting the gold star and the pat on the back of, oh, you did so good. Right. And yeah, that confidence and ego took me far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that is, I don't know. I don't know if it's broad. I don't know. I mean, I think in general, life does. It gives you a lot of, sorry, I have a kid. And my initial thing that came to my head was owies. I was like, no, it gives you a lot of bruises and scars along the way. And then we kind of get like a little bit less confident, a little bit more shy about the things that we do. And we kind of hold ourselves back a little bit I feel as we age. And I think especially as women, sometimes it's a little harder to have that confidence. So the fact that you were able to do that when you were young and headstrong, I think is such a cool story.
I
It's such a
know.
cool start.
Yeah, I think it worked for me. And I think looking back, it would have been interesting to see, had I gone to university with my friends, had that camaraderie and the other influences, right? Of, hey, we're all going to be studying this and we all do this or joining sororities, things like that. I didn't have that opportunity because already I was the outlier because I had a child at 18, 19 years old. And so I think it worked out. I got very, very lucky. I got very lucky. Not to say that that luck did not involve a whole lot of hard work, but for me, it was the best route in my life.
Do you feel like there were any certain expectations that your parents had for you growing up? Oh, we expect Jennifer to go do this or that.
They they always they always thought, and this was kind of funny, right? Because I have a much older sister and older brother, and my older sister was assumed that she would be the one to go to university and she would do so well. Well, she ended up getting married and having babies and being a stay-at-home mom. And my parents had always thought that was who I would end up being because I was the one who had a little babysitting business from the time I was 9 years old. And I was still playing with towels at 12, 13 years old. Well, then I had the baby at 19. So there wasn't that pressure or expectation because also, even though, and this is something that I've just discovered at 50, just 2 years ago, I'm ADHD, right? So all of those signs were there where I was the kid that was the clown. I was playing around in school. I wouldn't pay attention. I skipped grades because I was bright enough, but I really wouldn't apply myself and stuff. So my parents just thought, okay, we're going to find her a nice man. She's going to get married, have babies, and sort of behave herself, right? Yeah, that did not turn out for them.
Wow, that's so interesting, and it's quite different from a lot of the conversations I have where it's probably more like what you're expected of your sister, where the parents are usually like, "Well, you're gonna go to college and you're gonna, work hard, you're gonna do this." And it was quite different for you. So it's really interesting that you had that kind of different foundation. So after you got hired on by the company that bought you out, what was your kind of career like? Just kind of walk me through
Sure.
how things went.
It was really funny. So they're buying my company and they said, we want to bring you on, but you're going to have to go through the interview process. You're going to have to earn this job on your merits. And I went in for the interview and it was the funniest interview because I had never been on a corporate interview. I had never done this before. And this is early 2000, I want to say. It was 5 hours and they just kept passing me from office to office to office. And at some point, I'm just sitting in a lobby and they're like, oh, you're still here? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know that man. And they're like, oh, you interviewed with him? And I'm like, I guess so. I'm like, who is he? They're like, oh, okay. By the time I left, I had a job offer with a signing bonus and
Wow.
started the next week. And it was really interesting because I came to learn that I was the only one hired into my position in the recent history without a college degree that didn't come from a very specific fashion background, coming through FIT, coming through a Washington University's fashion design program. How I got that job, I have no idea. And so very quickly, I started moving from department to department because I'm a unicorn and I could do a lot of things because I had been on the retail end as well as on the buying end. I had managed business units. And so very quickly, I went from a very small $2 million a year buying department into a $50 million a year buying responsibility. And it was fantastic. I was traveling constantly. Challenge was my children. I was still a single mom. And so I was traveling quite a lot. 9/11 hit. And that really set in place for me that this was not going to be sustainable because I didn't want to take that risk of being in New York every couple of weeks. It didn't feel safe at that point anymore. I was ready. I had a buying trip that I was going to be headed to China. 9/11 happened in September. I was headed to China in December for a month. And that's when I decided this was not going to work out. I was not willing to go overseas and leave my kids. And so I left the job. I left and I took about a year off because I had been working since I was 19. I'm now 30 something, 31. At that point, I had owning my own business. I had never taken a vacation and going directly from, I sold my store, basically on like Tuesday. And by the next Tuesday, I was in this corporate job. So I took almost a year of vacation, about 8 months of vacation, just to figure out what to do with myself and where I wanted to go. And somehow I landed at Nordstrom. And at Nordstrom, it was a new store opening. And I rose through the ranks very quickly again at Nordstrom from a department manager into a designer manager into a regional lead position. And I loved it. Those were the heydays of Nordstrom when, it's just, I still have friends. It's been almost 20 years, over 20 years. And just, it was fantastic because they had such a great corporate structure. I don't think I had ever encountered in all of my years a company like that. It was still owned by the family at that point. And Blake, and I can't remember the other, I think 2 other brothers' names, but they would come in the store regularly. And just the way they approached their business and they operated from the why. They were still operating from this is a family business. We treat our clients, we treat our staff, we treat everybody we encounter like they're a friend. And so I just had such a great foundation in that corporate structure between my May company experience of managing this huge business unit and then into Nordstrom. Really, I was very lucky. I was very blessed. I worked really hard, but I was very, very lucky at where I ended up.
Yeah, that's a really cool. Nordstrom, it's in my mind, always had such a great reputation. And that was my go-to whenever I was looking for suits or, workwear. If I was going to go for an interview, it was always Nordstrom's where I'm going to go. I'm going to find my suit here. They're going to tailor it for me. I'm going to look great when I leave. And I know I would just walk in because they had great customer service. I would just walk in and I would say, here's what I'm looking for. Can you help me? Here you go. Try these things on. Try this on. Let's run. Blah, blah. Done. I didn't have to worry.
No, and we were
It
so
was perfect.
and we were so empowered. I worked at the store level and the regional level, and we were empowered to make decisions. It wasn't, oh, let me ask somebody, which is great for somebody like me who did not have a corporate job until I was 28 years old. I was an entrepreneur. And so I ran my little area as if it was my own. And they empowered me to do that. And I think that made such a difference in that customer experience because coming from Nordstrom, it's under promise, over deliver. And that still sticks with me today.
That's great. So why did you leave Nordstrom?
The honest truth why I left Nordstrom? Sexual harassment.
Yeah. Thank you for being honest. I mean, it's a real problem. It happens.
At the end of the day, I had a boss who was inappropriate, and it became an environment that didn't feel comfortable anymore because it created, now they fired him when it was reported, when I went to them to report, but at the same time that I reported him, other people that I worked with had seen what was going on, and they also had reported him. And so it became a very hostile work environment because he was somebody who had been with the company since, like my father, he was 18 years old and he was a fixture with the company. And so it created a very hostile environment that I was blamed by some people and I was cheered on by some people. And so it just became this like, I'm damned if I do, and I'm celebrated for doing. Like, it just became very uncomfortable. And so again, I left. Yeah, it was sexual harassment at the end of the day. And unfortunately, I'm glad they did what they did in letting him go, but it was a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. But I think that I think a lot of folks that are going to hear what you said are going to 100% relate. And I'm sure you've had conversations like almost every woman has some sort of sexual harassment story, right? Even nowadays.
You know, what's interesting is, I mean, this was in 2006. No, it wasn't talked about. Even my friends.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you? It's such a great job. Why would you quit? Are you out of your mind? Why would you do that? And I was blamed. I was shamed. And this is the first time I've talked about it since.
Oh my gosh.
It's been 20 years. So no, I don't. I mean, I know from, of course, when I was in China, the Supreme Court Justice, Neil Gorsuch, when he was being nominated and going through that vetting process, through the confirmation hearings, right? And Christine Blasey, that really stuck in my head. And that was one time on social media, if I go back to my social media, I was very vocal and I called out my friends. I called out friends and said, look, this happens to women. And you guys, this is why it's gotten this far, because we were told to shut up. We were told to be quiet. We were told to stay in our place. And then today. So thank you. This is the first time. So if maybe it helps somebody who, and hopefully it's not out there anymore. I think I have a almost 30-year-old daughter who I hope she has had a much better experience than I did, because it was something when I was at May Company that was very constant. We all knew because, you know, we were pretty young things and we wore pencil skirts and stiletto heels and, you know, very tight shirts because that was the style at that point. And we knew that if we let the right person buy us a drink, if we walked past or just didn't say anything when somebody made that gropey, disgusting comment, that we would be promoted. It's unfortunate, but I think my daughter, who's almost 30, I hope, and I'm pretty sure she's sitting across from me. She's on this trip. I'm really happy to say that she's had a very different experience than I did. And I hope for young women that they have a different experience. But women of my generation, we all went through it, but we all shamed each other into keeping quiet.
Yeah, that's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. But I'm with you. I hope it's getting better. But I also think, like, we'll see. I mean, with what's going on in the United States and the current administration and the way that that's going is not ideal. So it's like we've moved forward and now we're starting to move back. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
I had I had various levels of sexual harassment in my corporate career. Whatever, we all tolerate things, right? Nothing that was awful, awful, awful. The weirdest one, I had a sister that wrote a poetry book. And I was trying to support her and I thought it'd be really nice. Maybe this was my own downfall. Maybe this was a dumb idea. But I bought a bunch of copies of her book and I just started giving them out to friends and coworkers. I was like, my sister wrote this. I just want to share it. I thought that was like a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the guys that I gave the book to was senior to me by a couple of levels. And it was working in a department that my team supported. And then all of a sudden he started writing me poetry, like romantic poetry. And I was like, oh my gosh. no, like this is not an invitation for anything. But I guess I also should have realized because we went on a trip to New York once for work and he was like, let's go grab some drinks afterwards. And I was like, well, don't we all want to go get drinks? Like, why just me and you go get drinks? So it's just like a couple of things like that. I was like, so after that, like was the drinks were the first thing and then the poetry was the second thing. And I was like, I don't think this is cool. This is like
No.
super uncomfortable.
No, and the shame is, right? You're being nice, you're supporting your sister, you're just being you. And this is the response we get. And so then the swing in the opposite direction is to, I don't know if you will have to bleep me out, but to be a bitch.
It's fine. I won't. Yeah.
And so then you get labeled a different way. And it's so frustrating because you could not be anywhere in the middle. If you were an attractive woman, if you were smart, if you were outgoing, if you were driven, you were either a bitch or you were a slut. But you couldn't just do your damn job and be left alone, right? Like just let me do my job. I'm qualified, I'm educated, I'm producing.
Right, absolutely. Well, and then you get to, oh, forget it. I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm going to do my own thing.
And
right?
and so I did. And so I did, right?
Right.
And so that's exactly what I did. I left and I took a couple of people with me and I opened my own boutique again. And I did. And it was wildly successful and so much fun. And so I went back out on my own. And so then I'm back out on my own from 2005, 6, 7 again until I went back to university about 6 years later when I had a health scare. And then after that, again, right, I go back into this nonprofit job. This brings me up to that nonprofit job that I left to go to China. And I'm in that nonprofit job. And now I have the degrees. Now I have advanced degrees, a lot more degrees than one person ever needs.
Tell me about that, Jennifer. Before we jump into the nonprofit, just real fast, tell me about your education history. Like what made you want to go back and pursue education? And then what are the degrees that you have?
After I had that second boutique. After I left Nordstrom, I had this boutique that was just so much fun. But what ended up happening is I ended up getting sick from all of the work because I am a workaholic. And by that point, I had gotten married and my spouse had great health insurance and he had an income. And so I didn't have to work. And he had multiple degrees. He had been previously a university professor. And so he encouraged me to go back to school. I had always wanted to do it. It was always something I was very insecure about because I did not have my bachelor's degree at that point. So I just one day, when I had my boutique months earlier, there was a campus of the university had come around, down the street. They had just opened a satellite location for adult education. And they were like handing out flyers like, we're going to have a cocktail party, opening our new building. If you know anybody interested, we're going to have programs for adults. You can do a full degree. You can get a master's degree in the evening after work, stuff like that. And so I had this. I have no idea why for like 6, 7 months, I had saved this silly piece of paper. And after I had gotten sick, I just went down there one day, showed up and I said, I'd like to inquire. I have no idea what I'd want to study. What could I even do? And I left with a stack of books, paperwork filled out. I think at that point, like I had just signed up for the English classes, the literature, things like that. Because like, I have no idea what I want to do. And so I started there. I started in the adult evening college for non-traditional students. And I very quickly figured out that was not my jam. I was 35, 36 years old. I wanted that full college experience. My son at that point, remember I had a baby at 18. My son is now starting university and he's having so much fun. I thought, this is for birds. Like, what the heck? I'm going to do this too. So I transferred to the daytime university and I got my bachelor's of social work because at that point, again, I'm a know-it-all, same as when I was 19 years old. No one is going to tell me what I did wrong in business. So I would not get a business degree because I did not want to hear what I had done wrong in business because I ran wildly successful businesses, but I did it my way because I had no education. And so I had to make it work. And I was so afraid of being told that there was a system and I should have done it this way. And if I had done this, that it would have been more successful. And if I would have done this way, it would have been more successful. And I had always loved volunteering. I always participated in my community. I participated with my son's school, my daughter's school. And so I thought, social work, I'm going to give back. I am going to change. By that point, I had been working in high-end designer, selling $400 jeans, $1,000 jackets. And I thought, I'm just like, the capitalism is sort of done. I need a break from the capitalism and I need to do something to feel good. So I got a bachelor's of social work. From there, I moved into a master's in public health in social and behavioral science because I very quickly discovered I was not going to be a social worker because I would be the woman who had like 500 cats and I'd be adopting all the babies and I'd be taking everybody home because I was so over empathetic and that was not going to work for me. So social and behavioral science under the public health umbrella would allow me to design programs. So now I figured out how to be a social worker, but be a business person. How could I design programs and systems that organizations could use to help people without me being the person to help, without me being the person that has to be day to day in there. And from there, as I finished that, I started my PhD. I never finished that. So I'm an ABD, all the dissertation, because I went through the divorce and left my by then professor husband and decided that was it. I was out. I had enough education, but not enough practical experience. And so then as I was interviewing for positions, well, you're overeducated. You have no experience in this. You're overeducated. You have so much education. But then I found a unicorn of an organization that I absolutely loved, and their mission was fantastic. A good friend of mine had made the connection for me to the executive director. So, it's always not what you know, it's who you know, especially in St. Louis. And so I was able to come into that job in managing their operations. And so that really put me into helping people, but managing their business unit. And so it was just, it was this unicorn job for me of putting those two together.
That's great. You said it seemed like a dream job, right? That was the one where you said it seemed like a dream job.
It did. On paper, it was fantastic. I was working with a population that I really believed in, really fantastic kids that we worked with. We worked with high school students from around the city, from underperforming schools to level them up to their suburban peers. Really fantastic team. They had an AmeriCorps division, which was really, really fantastic. So I got to meet so many cool people from around the country who were coming and serving this population, which was really great. Board of directors was absolutely wonderful. But once again, the sexual harassment this time wasn't directed at me. It was the hostile work environment between the executive director and his number two. And it became a place where it was just uncomfortable to work. And at that point, I knew that this wasn't something that I really wanted to do long term because I'm an entrepreneur at the end of the day. And having so much structure, having a board of directors, having to be beholden to donors, having to be beholden to the AmeriCorps structure, because now we have the US government overseeing how we run certain things. That was even more, to me, oppressive than a corporate structure because there were so many big hands. And at the end of the day, the executive director and his number two, it was just an uncomfortable environment. And so I had the opportunity at that point that my daughter had graduated university. My son had just finished his master's. He was getting married. If I don't do this now, if I don't move overseas now, I am never going to do this. Yeah, I think I was around 45 at that point. I thought, I am not getting any younger. These days are going by. My parents at that point were both really healthy. My kids were happy. That was the sweet spot that I thought, you know what? This is the time to go. And so I just literally leaped and booked a one-way to Shanghai.
Wow. So that's really interesting. What was the pull for you to go and live abroad And what did you do to prepare to leave your job and
Yeah.
move?
Not a whole lot. that's that's the easiest way I could explain that. So it was the pool. I think because I had grown up with workaholic parents. And so I grew up in St. Louis. And like I said, my dad had worked in this corporate job for almost 50 years. We never vacationed as children because my dad was always working or my mom was working. There were three of us. If we went somewhere, it was on a business trip with my dad. And so that really wasn't that far away. Like, I think I went to Florida once, but mainly it was, between St. Louis and Chicago. There was not a lot of travel. And when I got married later to the professor, we had the opportunity to travel a little bit because he would present at conferences. And so we went to Florence. We went to Lisbon. Actually, it was my first time back in Lisbon since I had been here with them. Went to China. And I just had this bug that there's something bigger out there. There's something out there and I need to scratch this itch. I need to see what this is. Because remember, all of my friends had went through university traditionally. And so they had done study abroads. Both of my children had done study abroads. Everybody else had done this. And I thought, I'll take a year. The easiest thing, right? YouTube videos. Here's how I prepared. YouTube videos. You can get a TEFL. You can teach in China. Great. I'll do that for a year. Who cares? I'll be back in a year. It'll be fine. I have enough money, 14,000 and a free bed to sleep in. I had some savings. Fine. That's enough. I will get through the year and then I'll figure out what happens next because I still did not have everything pulled together to apply for my citizenship. I had not really focused on that. And that was going to take too long. And at this point, I just wanted to go. I was done. I had made a decision and I wanted to do this. And so the fastest way to do it was to go to China. And I signed up for this TOEFL class. I accidentally took the final test, thinking it was the practice test, and I passed. And so I never took the class because I had passed the final before I had taken it. And so that sped it up. But I'm like, okay, that's a sign. I'm supposed to go. And then I got an offer. Okay, great. My first interview, they gave me an offer. I got the visa. Boom. I sold literally everything I owned. I sold all of the furniture and I had just went through the divorce, moved into a new home, bought a new couch, bought a new bed, all this new furniture, pots, plates, everything. I sold it all. I got down to a couple of Rubbermaid totes and 2 suitcases and I was off and that was it.
That's
so not a lot of
amazing. Oh my
preparation.
gosh. I've heard a couple of folks talk about selling everything, selling it off. Was it difficult to do that?
No.
Not hard to let go of stuff.
No, because at the end of the day, right, I did keep what was important to me. I collect cocktail glasses, hand-blown cocktail glasses that I've picked up just over the years of this art fair, that art fair. I kept those. I packed them up. I had some beautiful Christmas ornaments that I loved. Those things I kept that were important to me. But the rest of it was just stuff. As I looked around, I mean, it was beautiful. I loved the new bedding that I had just bought, but it was just bedding. I had just bought it 6 weeks ago. I was fine before I had it. But that's also my personality. I am not somebody who really feels that connection to stuff. My sister, this would have killed her. This would have absolutely have killed my sister because she loves all of her things. But I'm just not, it wasn't hard, no.
Was it scary to go from a corporate job, a marriage, a country, and just like kind of go away from all of that stuff and go to this new experience? Were you scared as you were making this decision?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I was diagnosed with anxiety and I, for the longest time, thought I really did have anxiety. But then I moved to China. There is no level of anxiety that can prepare you for China. The shit that happens there, you cannot dream up. Reality is stranger than your anxiety. There were so many days that I was so scared, just the tears of, oh my God, what happens if this fails? I have to go back, right? Like, I'm going to get there. I don't know anyone. I don't know Mandarin. Do I have enough money? I don't know where I'm going to live. They're arranging this housing for me. I got there. The housing was terrible. So now I'm in a position of, I'm all the way in Shanghai. I've sold everything I own. I've told everyone that I'm leaving, right? I've made this whole big public display of I'm leaving. I got there and it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And so all of that fear that I had compressed into those 6 weeks of planning was now crushing because it was imploding very quickly. And it went sideways very quickly. It turns out the visa that the school that hired me brought me in illegally. It turns out that I was not going to have my own apartment. I was going to share it with a 21-year-old child. Um, it turns out I was not going to be in Shanghai. I was going to be 90 minutes away by high-speed train in some crazy small town. I couldn't have even prepared for just how bizarre the whole experience was. But it ended up it ended up so wonderful. So I end up with this 21-year-old and I said, "Look, I'm out of here. I'm not living here. This place is a dump. I can't do this. The school is bad. I'm here illegally. I'm here on a tourist visa. They told me that it was a teaching visa that would be converted. It turns out that's not true. All of this stuff." I said, "I'm getting on a train. I'm going to Shanghai. You can come with me or not." She goes, she's 21. This is the first time away from home. "Well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know. You can either come with me or not." I said, I booked a room at the Ritz-Carlton and this is where I'm going. Do you want to come with me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to the Ritz. Yeah." We spent a week at the Ritz-Carlton. I found a different job. I ended up in this other position, which was not a perfect fit, but it was a really good fit for that time with this group of really wonderful young men who took me under their wing. They had been there for a number of years and they taught me the ropes. And that led me into a much better position, which then led me to meeting my partner through through an expat group. And things just worked out. So yeah, it was really scary. I mean, there were so many nights of what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm in the process of writing a book right now. And I've been going through my journal with my writer. I have a co-writer on this, and I've been going through the journal and just reading some of the things that I was worried about and I was so scared about. I'm like, oh yeah, that didn't happen because this other bizarre thing happened. Like I could not have even imagined how crazy it would have been.
Oh my gosh. Well, I would love, please keep me posted about your book. I would love to read it when it comes out. It sounds wild. How long did it take before, that you got there, crazy experience, complete disaster, complete mess. You're like, I'm out of here. Slowly but surely things started to get better. At what point did you feel like, I think I can make this work? And now I've got things in order.
So I got there in August. That's a good question. I would say by like December, I was in a good position because I had went to kind of that bridge, that kind of temporary school in between, and very quickly moved into a good position. So I went from I was going to teach English for $14,000 a year to I was teaching science to first graders for about 2 months. And it was funny because I'm like, I don't know anything about science. They're like, "But you have a bachelor's of science." I'm like, "Social work, bachelor's of science, social work. Read the rest of the words." Like, I know nothing about science. I've never taken a science class in my life. But that very quickly, over those 2 months, it just gave me stability. And the people that I met helped me get an apartment. They taught me how to ride the metro. They taught me how to use all of the apps because China is a million years ahead of the rest of the Western world with apps. You can do everything on WeChat. You can order food. You can get your train tickets. You can pay for things. They got me a bank account. And so that very quickly led me into a position teaching business management and economics. And so by December, I had a good position. I had only been in the position a couple of weeks, but I could look around and go, okay, I made it here. I made it through all of this stuff. I made it through the divorce. I got myself to China. I survived through this crazy illegal situation. And I have a really good job. I had a really good job in China. I was teaching, I was a first year teacher, and I was making about 60,000 USD plus an apartment on the school campus, plus another apartment that they had paid for in the city. So all in all, it was about 80,000. I had secure insurance for the first time since like a million years ago. I had good health insurance. I was building a group of friends from a bunch of expats going to different groups like Girls Code International and Internations and Meetup. And I could see that, okay, this is it. Next year was going to be a good year. I had made it through the worst. It took a few months. They were wild months, but it didn't take long.
Oh, that's incredible. Is there anything that you wish you had done differently before you left or that you wish you'd known?
I don't even think I could have planned for anything. I think the biggest thing is I really wish I would have known languages better. I mean, I really wish
Mhm.
I had taken some time when I was in China to really focus on learning the language. I did take a lot of language classes, but it's a tonal language, and that was really hard for me. And so I would give up really easily. I wish I had not given up so easily, and I wish I would have pushed through. Same thing with, I knew we were going to eventually end up in Italy and or Spain. I wish I would have focused a lot more on the language because language is where you can really connect with people. And when you're learning the language, you're learning about the culture, you're learning the history, you're learning those local jokes, those inside jokes that you're not going to get otherwise. And I think that's my biggest regret is being an American, being monolingual.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. What led you to start ViaMonde?
um, like everything, it started itself. I went through the citizenship process. I entered Italy during COVID. After leaving Shanghai, we spent all of 2020 in Shanghai, and we left on Christmas Day. And my partner, being Spanish, she was able to get me into Spain, and I had 90 days in Spain as an American. And I had to do something because it was either get married, I love him to death and I will spend the rest of my life with him, but I am not getting married, or I would need to get my citizenship. And so by that point, I had my documents because I was planning in 2020 to get my Italian citizenship at the Shanghai consulate. But because of COVID, that had thwarted that plan. So in March 2021, with COVID still going on, I applied for my citizenship. And I connected online with people. Again, just connecting with people. I was out on Reddit. Reddit was much smaller at that point. I was on Facebook group. There's another thing called Tap I Talk or I Talk Tap, something like that, where people would talk about going through the process and just sharing my story of, hey, I'm here and this is what happened. This is what happened today, and this is what happened today. And other people started reaching out. Hey, can you help me? I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. By that point, I was actually working remotely for a tech company in operations again. I was helping them. They were a startup, and I was helping them develop their business units and audit their first years of business and get things in order. And so I was working remotely, but for fun, I was just answering questions. And so suddenly people are saying, as the world is starting to open and COVID is getting a little more under control, people wanted to start traveling again. They wanted to move to Italy for citizenship. And I said, I know a place. I know the clerk in the town. I can help you. No problem. Let me help you set this up. And so I just started volunteering, helping people. And by the end of 2021, I had helped 24 people get their citizenship. And then people started offering me money. And I'm like, oh, well, this is fun. Now you're going to pay me? Okay. So I need to have a business. So I called my accountant back in the US and said, hey, I need to have something legal. Can you draft, just a 1-page contract? Like, I'm going to help you and you're going to pay me $500. And it just happened organically and it grew. And because I had been so active from my time in China on different groups, getting help because that was my lifeline. Social media was my lifeline. I knew nobody until I started going to actual expat groups. So my lifeline was these groups. So I just started helping people and I started to build a reputation. And so now on Reddit in different groups, I'm like, oh, call China Cat Lady, call China Cat Lady. I'm like, and so this reputation just grew and it became a company. I now have 9 employees, pushing 10 on staff that work for me. They're all former clients. My daughter is my business partner. My Spanish partner, he is a duly licensed Spanish attorney and Italian attorney. He works for our clients, and everybody else was a client. They came through my process and they were unicorns like me. They had come from a variety of different backgrounds, but they were just really wonderful, caring people. And they loved the process. They wanted to stay and continue living in Italy. The job situation being what it is in Europe, where Americans were used to certain level of wages. That was not possible at local wages. And as we grew, I just started bringing them on. And that's how I ended up here. It was never a plan. In fact, when I was in Shanghai, I had bumped my head and fractured my skull. And so while I was on bed rest during that time, I wrote a business plan and I started in the process of buying a €1 house because I wanted to create a bed and breakfast retreat for women going through different life situations and to have a nice, safe space to bring women together, whether it was a jumping off point, whether it's, 2 days on your trip through Italy, whatever it was. And it would have included tours because I'd always been in fashion and I loved cooking. And so that was originally my plan. And I'm
Oh, that's
working
cool.
on it. I'm working on it. I'll get there. I'm not actually going to be the one to be able to do it. I know I have staff that will do it, but we're dusting off that old business plan from 5, 6 years ago from China, and we'll get there. But yeah,
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
citizenship and visas and the full relocation like we do in property. That, I couldn't have even imagined. I didn't even know that existed, honestly.
That is amazing. I love that. I love that you kind of just organically have been growing, building and growing this business and that there was a demand. Clearly there was a demand. And then suddenly it's like, oh, let's just keep doing this. Let's see how we can expand it.
Yeah, yeah. The Italian government this year gave us a couple of big challenges with changes in the laws, and our clients said, "Look, we still want to go to Europe. How are we going to go to Europe if we can't get citizenship? What do we do?" And I looked at Guillermo and I'm like, "What can we do?" And he's like, "Well, we can do visas. I'm an attorney." I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Somebody wants to buy a house. He's like, "I can help them do that." Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. And so we just started talking to clients and doing what they were asking for. And we built around them. So back to my time in Shanghai, teaching business management. We're market driven. Our clients are our best guides. We go where they want us to go.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And are you most of your clients from the United States or are they from kind of all over the place?
So mainly they're from the US. Occasionally an Australian will find us. In fact, we're starting to focus a little bit more on the Australian market. Occasionally we get some Canadians. At the beginning we had quite a few from the UK because of Brexit. And so
Mm.
they've pretty much all went through the process. We helped dozens and dozens of British come through the process so that way they could get legalized status in the EU. But my partner Guillermo is fluent in 6 languages. One of them is Mandarin Chinese. And so the next steps, once we get sort of everything situated right now and really get everything in place, then our next expansion is going to be back into Asia for visas for property, people coming
Oh,
from the
great.
Asian market who want to come into Spain, who want to come in to Italy. We still have really great friends there and we love going back there. So it gives us a good excuse to kind of go back to our roots and then help people move over to Europe.
That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about how your life has changed since you made this transition abroad and also your income, how it's changed when you were working in a more traditional
Mhm.
corporate setting versus what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I think, oh, how has my life changed? I think I'm back to my life is my work. There really is no differentiation, right? I started as an entrepreneur at 19. When I went into those corporate positions, there were hard stops. I had a job description that I would do
Hmm.
these things. And at the end of the day, that was it. I was done. I could walk away. Somebody else was going to pay the bills. Somebody else was going to make sure that everything was taken care of. The lease was handled. I didn't have to worry about those things. My day doesn't stop. And especially now that I live in Europe. I have a team in the US. I have clients all the way to California. I have a marketing team that's in Australia. This morning I started at 7:30. Tonight my last meeting is at 8 p.m. My days are long, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it because I can in the middle of the day today stop, took a break and took my daughter a wedding dress shopping. And so
Well,
that to me is my freedom because if I were back in a corporate job, right, it's 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, and I have to be here and 30 minutes for lunch and 2 weeks for vacation. Well, this year we took a month, and right now I'm doing 2 weeks where I'm away from home. Last week did a 3-city in Italy with clients, helping them find property. But I snuck in time every day. I went out shopping. I went and looked at architecture. I went to museums. And so I can have that balance within my workday, within my vacations. When we did the summer, a month, we went from Italy through France to Spain, and I worked, but we also every day went to museums, we went to concerts, we, went to the beach, but then I would just work around that. And so this to me is my sweet spot because I love what I do. And I love my clients and I get to change their lives. And so I'm back to that social work roots of being able to help people, but I'm helping people in my own way. And so that's how my life has changed. I think I don't know what this level of karma is, but it's really good. It's really, really good. I must have done something really
That's
good in the past life
fantastic.
to get here because it's really amazing. And so with that, right, my income is followed. It's fantastic. The one thing I loved about being in China was I worked from this hour to that hour, and every week the same amount of money showed up in my paycheck. And I had the same amount of money, and somebody paid the health insurance and took care of that. And I knew that there was always this much money, and I could very simply budget. Money was very different as an entrepreneur, right? So I kept that tech job for the first 2.5 years of this business because it was very up and down. Some months I had income because some months I had clients. Then I had 2 or 3 months where I had no clients and I was spending money to build a website, spending money to do this,
Yeah.
do that, to build this business. And instead, now I have money going out. But
Yeah.
now I think we've stabilized. We have been hit with 3 changes in the law. We're looking at a couple more. We've built a really good reputation. My team, I cannot say enough for them. They are golden angels. I mean, they are so incredible. And they have taken such good care of our clients that our company brings in good money, but all of us are paid almost exactly equal. All of us are within a very tight range so that everybody is rewarded for the work that they're doing. And at the end of the day, I get a fair wage. I'm not flying around on private jets. I still take Ryanair. The other day I was on a Flixbus, but I make a good wage and I get to do what I love and it's stabilized. But I'm going into my 5th year. I'll be starting my 5th year in January. And so I think 90% of small businesses fail within the first 3 years. I mean, I made it through. I made it through a business partner relationship that didn't work out. I made it through 3 law changes. I mean, I work with Italian bureaucracy. I have the US government. We rely on them. They're shut down. And we're doing good because we have a good, strong team that cares about what we do. And so that follows. The the income
Ooh,
follows.
that's so interesting. I didn't think about how the government shutdown would affect what you do, but I guess it does because of having to get the visas and things. Is that right?
So because we need documentation from the US.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
we need vital and civil records, we need naturalization records. We have clients
Mm.
that need USDA clearance to bring their pets.
Oh, yeah.
We need FBI background checks, we need apostilles. Yeah, we rely heavily on the US government. And so most of the things are done at state level, but there's a few key documents like the National Archives right now, we can't get a record from the National Archives. And that is key for our cases. And so that creates a problem. The Italian government is playing around with how difficult they want to make things. So then you have 10 consulates in the US. Each one has a different idea of how they want to interpret the laws and the rules. And so, yeah, we're constantly trying to figure out how do we work with bureaucracy while managing our clients' expectations, right? Because moving abroad is huge in, of the stressors in life, marriage, death, and a move. We're talking about moving
Right.
abroad. And so with all of that, we're managing it. And our team just does such a fantastic job in that our
Yeah.
our clients are happy. They keep coming to us and they send their friends. And so I think financially
That's
we're going to be
awesome.
okay. we're never going to be out there in a private jet. I'm not going to have my villa in Greece, but we're going to have a good life, and it's going to be sane, and it's going to be something that fulfills us.
That's so important. If you had to choose between happiness and success, which would you choose, and has your idea of that changed over time?
One of the things that was really important to me prior to turning 40 as a young entrepreneur, there was a St. Louis Business Journal, and every year they did the 40 under 40. They did 30 under 30, 40 under 40. Well, I never made the 30 under 30, and I thought, I'm so close. I almost made the 40 under 40, and that was always so important to me. Is I wanted to be in that 40 under 40. I wanted that profile. I wanted to show that I was successful, that I had built something, and that it was recognized. And I think as I'm now in my early 50s, I want to be happy, because I think if I'm happy, then I will be successful, because I was definitely not happy trying to be successful. And so now my focus is, if I can be happy, well, then the rest of it will come.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. Do you have an ultimate vision for what you want your life to look like?
Oh, yes. This is probably like most bougie dream, right? So I live in Sicily. I have an apartment that overlooks the sea on one side, and the other side is surrounded by mountains, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I have a Spanish partner who we have a home in Spain. I just want a little cottage in France, in the south of France. I want to be eating cheese. I just want to go to the little market. Like, I want to live outside of Toulouse. I love it there. I just want a little cottage. I just want to sit and write and play with my dogs and eat my cheese and have just enough little fuck off money to, drink some wine and have a good day.
I love that. Okay, so would those be that? Would you keep all three properties, or would
Oh,
you
yeah.
relocate to France as? Oh, okay,
Oh, no.
okay.
So of
You
course,
never know.
because of course, sometimes I'm gonna need to go to the beach. Sometimes I'm gonna need to see the sea. And when I say I have a little apartment, I have a little apartment in the town that my great grandparents emigrated from in 1902
Oh,
and
wow.
1906. And it's nothing fancy. It's a little apartment. It's $100,000 apartment. It is nothing fancy, but it is
That's so amazing, though.
it's my little slice of heaven, and I love it. A couple of years ago, I was on House Hunters International when I was searching for it. And this summer, I did some remodeling, and it is the home of my dreams, of my childhood dreams. I painted everything a very, very soft champagne pink. I have colorful artwork, everything, I'm very tactile. So I have this beautiful, deep navy rich velvet sofa. Like it's gorgeous. I'm building the next thing I'm working on right now is a walk-in closet. And then when I get home, I'm building the second bedroom. We'll turn it into a little home gym. So it's nothing fancy, but no, I would never let it go, because where would I buy a beachside apartment that is 3 sides of glass overlooking the sea and the mountains for 100,000 in the town my family came from? I've met cousins. I've met second and third and fourth cousins that I never knew existed. I have the most wonderful neighbors. Yeah, no, I would never sell that. Now the house in Spain, that's up to Guillermo. That's up to Guillermo, but I don't think he would. He loves it.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds so beautiful. So one thing that I will ask, I would love to include photos or video clips or whatever about your journey and your life and
Sure.
these places that are important to you, and the boutique and the moment. So it sounds incredible.
Thank you. No, it's been fun. It's fun. Definitely a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah. What kind of advice do you give to people that are trying to figure out what to do with their lives?
Ugh, I think you have to stop researching at some point, and you have to start planning. I think you have to give yourself a deadline, give yourself a goal, and set that date on the calendar, know what that goal is, and then you've got to work backwards and design that plan to get there. Because I talk to people every single day. I have a friend who for the last 20 years has said the same thing. Her goal has been the same, and she just keeps researching. She's still in exactly the same place as she was 20 years ago. I think at some point you just have to stop and say, that's enough. I know everything I could possibly know about this. I'm going to have faith in myself, and I'm going to have confidence in myself that I will get there. And guess what? There's support systems. No matter what it is you want to do, whether it's you want to teach yourself how to knit, or you want to write a book, or you want to ride a bike, there is somebody out there that will support you through it and help you get there. But you have to do it. You have to take the first step and be brave.
Yeah, that's well said. What lights you up?
I think just every morning, the sunshine in my eyes. Every morning that I wake up and the sun, and the first thing I see in the morning is the sunshine and the sea, and that, just those simple little things. Taking a walk with my two little stray dogs every day.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. All right, Jennifer, if people want to find out more about you and your company and follow along with all of the great things that you're doing and the new business that you're going to be building, what's the best way for them to do that?
So our website is ViaMonde, MONDE.eu. And that's also our Instagram, and I believe our TikTok too. And then if they want to email, I'm just Jennifer@ViaMonde.eu. You can Google my name, Jennifer Sontag. I show up all over the place because there's not many Jennifer Sontags in Italy. So it's pretty easy to find me. And on Reddit, I am China Cat Lady. I don't know. It's a name that's stuck.
That's cool. It was a moment in time, a pretty big part of your journey. That's so great, Jennifer. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'm so impressed by your background.
Thank you.
And I mean, you've your entrepreneurship journey. It was like so many different businesses and so many different phases, and now you're doing something that's really cool and inspirational. And I think for many of us, so helpful. And I can't tell you how many people that I know that are like, moving abroad would be great, at this point.
Right. And especially as you're like, what's next, right? Because guess what? Corporate jobs, they don't care. We're disposable. And I think that has shown time and time again. And so thinking about like, what's next? What can I do for myself? How can I build my perfect life and do something I love and that I believe in and that feeds my passion and feeds my soul? So yeah, move abroad, go to China, go to Australia, go to South America, go somewhere. Travel. From someone who did not travel till they were 40, travel. It opens your eyes. The world is big.
Oh my gosh, well said. Thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you so much. Hi, Vanessa. I'd love to catch you up on what's been happening here since we recorded. We are currently working with a couple of towns in Sicily to develop international live and work communities. This is alongside with our real estate and legal team and the support of the towns. We're launching new projects that showcase a couple of towns specifically in Sicily, one that's seaside, one that's nearby in the countryside at the base of the mountain. But unlike the well-known €1 ruins in remote areas, these are properties that are affordable homes that are easily accessible, beautiful towns that have established services, high-speed fiber, and the homes are either ready to move into or might need some modernization, but they are definitely not ruins. And this is the perfect opportunity to have a comfortable, well-connected lifestyle in Europe. So I'd love to tell you more about it on our next chat.
This has been 101 Ways Out. I so appreciate you taking your valuable time and spending it with me. I hope something in this episode made you feel seen, understood, and inspired. If you're looking for support taking the next step in your life, visit 101waysout.com and check out our 30-day program. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms and follow our social media. Spread the word. I look forward to seeing you next week and continuing to explore what lights you up.